All right. Very much appreciated. Some of you are still here, like at the last few minutes, standing in between being here and maybe having food or drinks. So thanks for that. So today the panel is about enterprise adoption of blockchain technology, and I think we have a fantastic panel over here. The panelists will introduce themselves in a few minutes, and I would not want to take too much time to frame the panel. I'll just quickly introduce myself, and then we get straight into the questions. So yeah, my name is Yuri van Gielen. I'm the founder and CEO of BuildBlocks Group. We design concepts and build products for large enterprise and governments. So our largest clients are Shell, oil and gas, FedEx, BASF, Bosch, and KLM Airlines, and we're expanding from Europe right now into Singapore and Asia. So what we're seeing in the enterprise space is that enterprises are all very curious and they all want to do something with blockchain technology. Some are just experimenting, some are really building products that work, and we're supporting them in that process. So maybe I'll just park it there for my introduction, because these guys have a lot of interesting insights to share on their respective companies. And I've been in two panels already, so you got enough of me already, I guess. Um, Yuja, would you like to quickly introduce your name, your company, and also how your company ties into the enterprise space? Yeah.
Thank you, Yuri. Hi, everyone. My name is Yitya, and I work for Luther LLP, which is an international law firm in Singapore. We're in the traditional corporate, commercial, and M&A space, but in the recent year or so, my partner and I have built up a blockchain, yeah, a blockchain crypto desk. So we have taken on more and more blockchain clients, cryptocurrency clients, and a lot of these are also closely working together with enterprises. And like Yuri mentioned earlier, enterprises are increasingly curious about this, and they all want to know the best way that they can integrate this new technology into their existing systems. Yeah.
Uh, okay, guys, my name is Will, and I'm the CEO of Blue Whale Foundations. So basically, what we do is we provide blockchain solution for sharing economy sectors, and in order for us to fully utilize a tangible and also intangible asset, and our main project is basically asset tokenizations, and we are the first official blockchain partner of IFES. The IFES is an Incheon Free Economic Zone. I'm sure that you guys know the Incheon Airport. It's a like main airport in South Korea. Um, IFES is a free economic zone, which is the largest free economic zone in South Korea. So we are the first blockchain partner of IFES, and also we made a partnership with Samsung Electronics, and also working with some uh, corporation and also like companies in Singapore, like asset evaluation partners and also custodian service partners, and also we just submitted an application to MAS. So in order to do issue like security type tokens, so we are also working with them as well. So basically, we are working with like small companies from like small medium businesses to large corporate as well, and also as well as governments. Yeah, this is what we do, and yeah, I'm very excited to talk with these guys. Yeah, please.
Thanks, Will.
Oh, thank you.
Mark, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm Mark, and I'm the Southeast Asia Business Development Director for OneChain. Um, how should I start? Our founder Jack Lu founded Factum actually Factum was there before Ethereum, so Factum has been there for enterprise solutions and stuff. Then moving forward, he founded Wang Lu Tech. It's an enterprise solution company in Beijing. So that was back in 2016, and OneChain is incubated by Wang Lu Tech. So this is another project that's founded by him as well. So we have been there in this enterprise solution space for a very very long time. Um, I think that's about it from us. Yeah.
Thanks. So my name is Luca. I'm here with Blockchain Valley Ventures. We are a investment boutique. On one hand, we do venture capital. On the other hand, we do investment advisory and structuring for small but also large enterprises. We're actually Switzerland based. Just opened here the Singapore office, and we have had the chance over the years to work with various enterprises in Switzerland and in Europe, from some publicly listed, some private, and quite a good experience there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laurent. I'm the co-founder of ChainStack. ChainStack is a platform as a service that is basically targeting for developer and enterprise to be able to build and deploy blockchain protocols and build on top of those blockchain protocols in a very, very easy fashion. We hope we can actually help developing a large ecosystem of partners and developers so that enterprise blockchain adoption can actually accelerate and enterprise can come and basically start really benefiting of the blockchain attributes and benefits and strengths that we see in their application.
Thanks so much. Okay, then I'd like to get to the first question, um, which is what kind of industries right now do you think are biting best by blockchain technology? So enterprises within which industries? So, for example, we are focused mostly on the energy industry, logistics, supply chain, and industry 4.0, like AI and IoT. But I'd like to understand from your point of views and from your companies, which ones are most likely to be disrupted from this technology, and say just mention one and the why. Yeah, maybe Will, can you give the microphone to Yuja? Okay.
For me, I think that the single industry that will be disrupted the most would definitely be the financial services industry. I mean, blockchain is the biggest buzzword in the financial services industry today. So, from it has definitely so many benefits to offer, right? From cutting off the middleman, cutting transaction costs, increasing the security of the entire system, privacy. So one example would be stock exchanges for sure. They could use blockchain is a really, really good use case for stock exchanges because it not only reduces the time for the settlement process, but it also makes payments a lot quicker. And also everybody has a role to play in the validation process. And I think NASDAQ has introduced 1 year ago some project that integrates blockchain technology. And from our perspective, from our clients also, it's definitely one of the industries that where that is heavily reliant on paper trails for now and will be heavily disrupted in time to come.
So I also agree on her opinion. So I also think that like financial service is the industry that we should try using blockchain technologies. So main reason is, as you guys know, blockchain is for trust, right? And especially for there are many like the players in financial sectors. For them, one of the most important thing is how they can provide trustworthy kind of like data and also like relationship and also connections as well. So I that is why I think that that is the very promising. And also when I talk with many the people who used to work in the financial sectors for maybe like 20 or 30 years, what they're saying is the way that we are trying to do is exactly same, but only difference is we are using a new technology and new tool to for them to actually provide kind of like new software, right? So it's pretty much similar, and the way that people can also utilize and also build the ecosystem pretty much is similar. So that is why we think that financial industry is the industry we should definitely somehow innovate by using blockchain technology. Yeah.
So just to avoid that everybody is jumping into the financial service industry, which is indeed going to be disrupted by, is there anybody that has a different industry and why?
Yeah, I'm quickly going to mention the supply chain one because you mentioned it as well. So we have seen that the blockchain technology can help a lot in the supply chain because it takes away the need to rely on others, to trust others, especially when it goes from one party to the next. That transaction can be simplified. We have one of our investments is in the pharma supply chain because that's obviously something that really has to work well. Um, we have seen in the US Walmart using blockchain technology on lettuce just to keep the cold chain on the chain. And we're seeing here in Singapore or here in Southeast Asia other examples of how supply chain is being helped. For example, in the tracking of halal food, and that's something that I'm very excited about.
Actually, what seems to be really interesting is that it's not so much whether one industry more than one other is ahead. I think financial industries have more use cases simply because those use cases are very narrow and they're also very, very specific to cross-border payment or to a particular process that is clearly improvable using a ledger and using decentralized ledger technology. But I think what's really interesting is to try to understand how some of the industries are going to be able to use or reinvent different processes, and that will apply across different industries. So what we really see is basically different companies trying to create single source of truth across how transactions circulate or how information basically is being used to collaborate across multiple partners in an ecosystem. And that's applicable to most industries, right? It can be applied to supply chain, can be applied to healthcare, can be transport, etc. So I think those generic use case about single source of truth, about immutability and transparency and auditability, as well as the ability to reduce intercompany reconciliation, which very few people talks about, but which in reality is one of the big portion of the projects being done today, are really, really interesting. So I think this analysis of industry also needs to take into account that a lot of those different example and use cases today are cross-border. And that's really interesting, I think, because you're going to see acceleration of those in multiple places.
I don't think we should be industry specific when it comes to enterprise solution, because, for example, in we work with telecommunication company like Telefonica in Madrid. So it's for cybersecurity on blockchain in mobile phones, especially SIM card. So in China, we work with this Chinese government to elevate this corruption. You see, so for example, if Beijing wants to send money to a province, we use blockchain to do it. Yeah. We also work with two financial houses in China as well. There are some use cases in my booth. So we are doing financial supply chain, which we already did, and also mortgages on blockchain. So in Malaysia, we are working on revenue model with a listed company. Two revenue models to be exact. So one of them is data monetization, and the other one is tokenization of loyalty points. So you see, we work with so many industries, and I don't know which industry will be the definite winner, but I think they're all winners. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of efficiency, I think we all will be. Yeah. Then obviously we need to put some realism to this panel as well. Blockchain technology is still early, and there's challenges here on the business side and on the technical side. So I'd like to stress that a little bit more. Not all of you need to give an answer, but if you have an answer, then please jump in. So, what do you think are the main technical or business challenges right now that prevent blockchain technology from being fully adopted by the enterprise space? Is there anybody that has a good insight there? Uh, Mark and then
So
Laurent? Yeah.
it's definitely the customization of the SDK. So for example, if you're using SAP system for your company, right, it's an API. But how are you gonna plug those information? So you have to customize SDK, and it can be quite costly. So this is one of the major technical aspects that a lot of enterprises are facing. And of course, pay us, we will do it for you.
Interoperability, right? Yep.
So I think you have obviously many challenges. If not, all enterprise would already have adopted blockchain technology. The first challenge is really trust, right? I mean, can blockchain be sustainable, scalable? Can it be reliable? Can it be transparent in the ways the enterprise use it? And the truth of the matter is that even though we believe the technology does provide most of these attributes, for many people, it's still not something that is widely accepted. So I think you need a certain level of transparency being created, a certain level of expertise, best practices to be developed so that people adopt the technology as something they can integrate within their enterprise infrastructure, which is never easy, right? I mean, being integrated into the enterprise infrastructure for any company is a challenge by itself, let alone if you're a blockchain focused application or if you're a blockchain service company. So I think this widely accepted version of how blockchain will be used still needs some efforts. And then the second challenge, really at a high level, is basically providing applications that make sense. Today, you have a lot of amazing blockchain protocols, Fabrics and Corda and multi-chain and Ethereum and one-chain and many of them that are out there providing different type of solutions. Some of them vertical, but how many of them are really being used by the enterprise in the context of having application built on top of it that makes sense for this enterprise addressing one particular use case or one particular requirement. And I think we're at the stage where the ecosystem of partners on top of those application needs to be built so that the enterprise find what's really useful to them in the context of what they're trying to find and address as challenges.
I completely agree. Like, one of the biggest problems is the fragmentation of the space. As you mentioned, you have Ethereum, you have Cardano, you have R3, you have countless technologies. There is no leader, there is no one technology that is being adopted more than others. And that scares enterprises off because they need to have stability, they need to have reliability of their systems, something that the blockchain technology doesn't have because it is in its infancy. Um, that's what we see, especially in Europe. Companies have heard about it; they don't really trust it yet.
I think that the
And
microphone is
oh,
not ideal. Yeah, maybe we switch the mics.
okay, does it work better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Luca.
Um, yeah, so in Europe, we see especially that companies want to try it, but they don't really know where to start because each system has different advantages and disadvantages, and nobody inside the company knows them. So that is probably one of the biggest problems. There's still a little bit too much fragmentation in the blockchain space, in my opinion.
Uh, so basically, the main challenge is actually showing one successful case by using given technologies available, right? I think that is the main challenge that we have. As you guys, as I mentioned, what we do is we're trying to somehow utilize tangible and intangible asset, and we decided to pick to utilize a tangible asset first, which is real estate. So we decided to somehow try to build a system and also platform how people can successfully and also efficiently share the asset they have. And then what happened was we faced with the some situation that we need to somehow convince some of governments and also regulators as well. So this is first challenge that we face. So now we are trying to somehow convince, hey, this is something that is already existed. So we are just using a different technology. And then when we also implement the system, is as you guys know, the blockchain technology is not mature as yet, right? So we need to use the existing technology. So there's so many limitations. So what we are doing is we try to simplify as much as we can. We simplify our assumptions and then try to pick and also try to come up with a actual case that the simple case. But the most important thing is the project should be able to work with many different partners in order to prove that why the blockchain technology actually works. So that is, I think, the main challenge: how we can show them like one small successful case by working with many different partners in different industry and sectors based on trust. Yeah.
Maybe I'll follow up from there and have a question for you, Yuja. Because as it said, like Yuja is part of Luther LLP, a law firm here in Singapore. Um, and I know that you are serving quite a few blockchain projects here in Singapore. So I wanted to ask, like, is there any blockages that you would foresee from a regulatory point of view or legal point of view that might hamper the growth of like blockchain adoption within enterprise?
Sure. Thank you, Yuri. So, actually, I'll offer some insights from the legal and regulatory perspective because, generally speaking, like all the regulators in the world right now are still a little bit fearful of this new technological creature, which is blockchain. And, like Will mentioned, it's very hard to persuade them that it's actually it has the same principles, the same features as what has existed before. But because, for example, for companies to raise money in the public, from the public traditionally, you have to go through the IPO route, right? You have to be already sufficiently funded. You have to have an underwriter. You have to go and you have to approach investment banks to be your sponsors. But for ICOs, like regulators just cannot wrap their minds around the fact that you are in a company in such an early stage can already approach the public to raise funds without any concrete, sometimes, business plans. And so because of that, jurisdictions like South Korea and China have banned it completely. And even the US has deemed some of the ICOs as fraudulent ICOs in the past year. And even Singapore, closer to home, doing an STO is still very, very difficult here because it's the Securities and Futures Act here is still written in such a way that it's more accommodating for traditional securities. So shares, debentures, collective investment trust units. So because of that, it's very difficult for a token in today's day and age, a digital token to fit into that definition. And if you would like to do an STO, you would probably need to go the full blown route of having a prospectus. Otherwise, you fall under one of the exemptions, but it doesn't make it a lot easier or cheaper than a traditional IPO route.
Thank you, Yuja. That's appreciated. So I'd like to actually turn to Mark right now, because what we are seeing within BuildBlocks Group when we develop for large enterprise and government is that we use different protocols and blockchain stacks. So we've been building on Ethereum, Parity, Oasis, Hyperledger, Polkadot. Um, so we basically look at which use cases make sense for these specific enterprises, and then we choose the right protocol with it. One chain is part of the interoperability use cases, just like an Aeon or a Polkadot or an Icon. And I'd like to understand from you, because you focus on basically looking at different protocols and how to tie them together to basically create a better, a better full stack blockchain environment. Like, how do you see that that is being adopted right now in enterprise?
Okay, so I'll give you a very good example. For example, a private chain, let's say KFC chain, is built on a one chain private chain. And we did cross chain with Ethereum, Bitcoin, and EOS is coming on the way. So, for example, if there's another private chain that's built under EOS ecosystem, we are able to connect KFC private chain to EOS private chain. But with other protocols, they can't do that. And not only that, in quarter 4 this year, we will be integrating Hyperledger as well. So basically, the enterprises can choose to swap their consensus to Hyperledger as and when they want to. So we are giving our clients a lot of options to interconnect the private chains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So instead of competing with Ethereum and all, we are welcoming each other to actually communicate with everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, then I would like to give one more reflection. So what we're seeing is that a lot of large enterprises are a little bit conservative. So they choose to work on a proof of authority consensus mechanism, which in layman words basically means that there's a hierarchy, a management hierarchy within the company. And basically the higher up managers, they are the so-called ambassador nodes, and they make the decisions within that network. So it's basically a management hierarchy. So it's still very much protected like a private network before large enterprise and governments are basically opening themselves up to public interaction. So I'd like to ask from anybody's point of view that would like to tap in, like, what do you see, like which kind of protocols are mostly used within the enterprise space, and which ones do you foresee are going to be the successful ones to disrupt the enterprise?
Um, so I think it's kind of easy to see the protocols today that have tractions in the market simply because they're being used by the enterprise today. I think Hyperledger started earlier, and they're clearly ahead of the pack. I think in Asia we see a lot of Corda and R3, and we see multi-chain and Quorum, and those are kind of the ones that are used in the context of private permission blockchain being deployed. And we see Ethereum use cases also, deployed here and there. Now, I think you have a list of about 20 different protocols. You mentioned some of them that are on the list of the protocols that we watch. that we will be supporting at some point as they gain traction, and that are very interesting because they address issues around scalability or issues around transparency or issue about a better documentation or set of tools that they provide so that enterprise can really deploy and develop solution on top of, which are really interesting. So you mentioned some of them that you're supporting, Jordi. There are others in the market. What's really interesting is that some of these protocols comes from very different countries, and it's kind of the first time in history where we have technologies, interesting global technologies coming from Asia and Europe, and not only one place on the west coast of the US. So I think it's also going to help burgeoning ecosystem around those protocols that will be interesting in Russia, in Asia, certainly in China, potentially in Japan, in Korea, and in Singapore itself. We have some interesting project like Zilika. I think is a very very interesting and fascinating project. So I think this is also going to be more global, and customer will choose their protocol, enterprise will choose their protocol based on the use case they're trying to address. I think we'll see some verticalization to which protocol makes sense for XYZ use case, because they need more scalability, more security, they need a better throughput, they need better reliability, and that's how the market is going to develop. So you'll still see some fragmentation in the market in the future. You'll be, in the same way we are multi-cloud today, we'll be multi-protocols tomorrow.
Will, yeah, sure. Luca, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think
Oh yeah.
there's two things that are very important to enterprises that we've seen. So one is definitely they prefer the idea of having private chains at the moment, just because they don't trust being on public chains yet. And the other thing is that whenever they employ smart contracts, they want to have the possibility to change them. So the fact that once you publish a smart contract, it's like it's there, you cannot change it anymore. It's not something that especially larger enterprises are comfortable with, and that's why they tend towards more, let's say, corporate chains like Hyperledger or Corda and so on.
So just like what this guy said, I think the important thing is depends on use case. So I would like to give you an example from our actual case. So let's say what we like to do is, let's say there's a building in Singapore, and we want to somehow split the one building into a million pieces, and wanted to sell this to like many people, like retail investors and also equity investors as well. Then in order for us to do this, right, we realize we probably need seven or different partners who can somehow verify whether the information is actually true, right? So we realize, oh, just for this project, we don't need to have agreement for millions of people. We only need to make sure that like only these seven players make sure that like information they provide all true and also correct. So, but main difference is they already have trust that they have built for maybe in like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So we think that maybe at the beginning, especially in enterprise model, I think that maybe in like it's not exactly a POA, but something similar to POA stuff will be somehow will be developed for those enterprise business models. So that is what how I think. Yeah.
Well, this is a great bridge, Will, because I just wanted to go to a successful or a good use case that you've seen within the enterprise space. And I'll give you one, and then I'd like to just have, in a one sentence, just a quick name drop of the use case. So the use case we've worked on is flight delays. Coding them in a smart contract. So when a flight delay happens, basically the passenger that is damaged will get an automatic compensation instead of the passenger needing to claim money back. So automatic payment based on flight delays. That's what we've done for one of our clients. Could you all just name drop one example? Like Will, you've given one. Yuja, would you have one? Anybody jumping in? A quick statement. A successful use case that you've seen.
Tracking a medical device across Southeast Asia for a healthcare provider, across multiple hospitals, doctors, clinics, patients, the distributor and wholesaler of those medical devices.
Actually, we have a very similar one. It's about transportation of medical samples. So to really track the entire supply chain of medical samples in a new kind of it's a, it's a, it's a combination between IoT and blockchain to keep the data.
We have done a few, so it's data monetization, financial supply chain, mortgages. Yeah,
I think the most interesting project that we have seen so far is Rice Exchange. So cross-border connections of the buyers and the suppliers of rice, and yeah, it's just continental and built into the blockchain, so you can track your rice from when you purchase it to when you receive it.
Fair enough. Okay, and then I mean we're all in Singapore, or at least I'm assuming most of you are based in Asia. We actually have Luca on the panel, and well, we have Luca from Switzerland, and Laurent, who's originally from France, as I understood. Yeah. So, how do you see the difference in enterprise adoption in Europe and in Asia? And is there a real difference, or is it like artificially there because we're here and we just see this vibrant Asia?
Well, I would say that especially in Switzerland, companies are rather conservative, um, with the exception of some financial institutions that are surprisingly trying to jump on the blockchain bandwagon, namely certain private banks. But at least from my feeling, in Asia, both on the consumer side but also on the enterprise side, there is more openness to try out new technologies just because there is less legacy debt from the past 10 years of technology inside the companies themselves.
Quick addition there, Laurent. Yeah.
No real difference. No real difference.
Okay.
I think it's pervasive. It's global.
All right. Then I'd like to stay with you, Laurent, because well, what we're seeing right now is that there's some POCs and there's some initial use cases happening. Um, yeah, like the real products that enterprises are going to use. Like, are we close to that? Like what is next now that we've established these first initial use cases and proof of concepts?
So there are multiple stages, so it's not going to be one step, but basically what you're going to find is you're going to find first the infrastructure of the enterprise to be widely adopting blockchain infrastructure layers. So some tools, some management tools, some utilities that will basically enable them to access blockchain in a readily fashion. And ChainStack is one of these tools. You'll find many others. And then only they will start building and deploying on top of those tools. So you still have basically the need for some layer of security and transparency and trust being established by the enterprise at the infrastructure layer of the technology so that they can really adopt it widely and get their developer to come every morning and basically say, okay, let's try this with SAP or let's try this with Oracle and let's connect this system so that it's already integrated in the system. So we still need this additional layer. And what you're going to see when this layer is in place is the same type of adoption as you had with the cloud 15 or 16 years ago, right? It took a long time for the cloud to pick up because the same question about credibility, reliability, and where is my data, and can I ever take it back? The same question were being asked by the enterprise, and today they're the main adopter and the main user of the cloud. So the same will be actually happening in blockchain. You'll have huge acceleration around many different use cases that will simply make sense because they're cheaper or they're faster to deploy on blockchain. That's it.
Okay. I think we have another 3 minutes. I just wanted to do a quick check in the audience if there is a burning question. Otherwise, I have another one. Anybody with a burning question? No? Okay. Yeah, I see one. Yeah, yeah. Please. All right. I get a little interaction going here in the last few minutes.
Hi, I'm a beginner developer learning smart contract, and I heard this nice gentleman over there had mentioned about auto deployment of blockchain nodes. Is that how does it work? Is it easy for user perspective to do that?
Is it easy from a user perspective to
To deploy nodes through the platform that he was talking about earlier?
yeah, change stack? That is, yeah.
Thanks for the question. Sorry, I could not hear. It's actually a complicated process, and that's really the challenge in the adoption. And once we will have addressed this challenge of providing tools which enable people to come and build and deploy nodes, and collaborate with these nodes by building consortiums, changing the mindset of the enterprise around how they collaborate, then you'll have this huge acceleration. But from a developer standpoint, certainly the junior ones, it's definitely challenging.
All right. Any other burning question? No? Then how many minutes do we still have? I think one more question. Okay. Then I'd like to ask one more question, and whomever feels like taking it, please. So what we are seeing is that there's a few conglomerates currently happening, like companies cooperating to solve or to create use cases within the industry. So I come from the energy industry, and the Energy Web Foundation is basically a conglomerate of large and medium-sized enterprise in the energy industry. They've built like 250 use cases, and together they're like innovating towards new concepts, right, which can then be adopted. Is this something that we're currently missing, or is this something that you in your respective countries actually see happening? Or do we need more of this?
Um, yeah,
Anybody?
yeah, I am. So no, I think this is really an interesting question because that's the next step for everyone. The next step is how do we work and collaborate with enterprise in a different way than the way we used to do it for the past 20 years, and basically working in silos and having all these data secluded to different systems and information. I think blockchain offers the opportunity for large group of people to create what we call mega consortiums, right? Mega conglomerates. And assembling these conglomerates from a blockchain perspective seems easy because you have smart contracts and you have decentralized services and you have a kind of an automated way to do it. But the mindset of the people is not ready for that. So we need to educate the mindset and change the way we look at data and can potentially use this data to improve and optimize, basically reduce cost and save time in the way companies work together.
Fantastic. Yuja, the closing answer.
I just wanted to mention recently I came across this project called the Accord Project. So basically, they combine smart legal contract templates to use, and there's a lot of communication between a lot of law firms, a very huge names list of big name law firms, and as well as technology guys. Because I think the main problem that smart contract drafters may face is that you sometimes are not really sure whether something is legal or not. So everyone's just kind of adopting the mindset that let's just do it until someone tells me it's wrong. So yeah, and also there are a lot of aspects about smart contract that needs legal input. For example, the legal term within a reasonable time cannot really be drafted into a smart contract. You have to say like, what do you think is reasonable between 3 and 27 days? It has to be definite. And also these legal and regulatory changes, because sometimes the blockchain is immutable, right? Once it's drafted, you cannot change. So you have to draft certain terms into it that caters for the possibility that the law might change and how it might change. So I think this kind of interdisciplinary communication is very important. So definitely conglomerates and consortiums working together to share knowledge is very, very powerful. Yeah.
Clear. Okay, with that note, I would like to thank all the speakers for being here and all of you for being here. I'm sure that all of us are still available for a few minutes if you have any personal questions. So thank you so much, and a big round of applause for our speakers today.